This is Power in Politics, the award-winning podcast about the issues that are impacting New Yorkers and beyond the most, with the people that are making those decisions, the advocates and the public officials as well, holding them accountable along the way. Today we get an update on the New York State Community Commission on Reparations with Dr. Seanelle Hawkins. She's the chair of that commission. They've been doing their work when it comes to these community gatherings and meetings over the course of the last year now, coming up in July. So we get an update on what they've been talking about, what they've been hearing from the community. Interesting stuff as they discuss a definition of reparations. What does that mean to community members and what that means to the commission itself and how close they are to getting that definition so they can potentially allow some recommendations to come to the New York State Legislature and Governor Kathy Hochul. Thanks as always for listening and watching. You can watch us wherever you get your YouTube videos at CBS 6 Albany or your podcast. Subscribe today at Power in Politics. We're joined today by Dr. Seanelle Hawkins. She is the chair of the New York State Community Commission on Reparations. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and talk more about our commission.
Yeah, the commission now, we're approaching, at least for meetings-wise, almost a year in July. I know that the process has been going on now for a little longer than that with you being involved. I just want to get a pulse here to start. You know, what have you learned over the course of the last year of public hearings, meetings, presentations, and beyond?
We've learned that New Yorkers are interested in this process. We learned that New Yorkers want to learn the history, they want to have input in the report, and they're looking forward to us providing this report of what the recommendations will be. And we're hearing a variety of recommendations. We're still learning, so I won't be able to share all of that. But certainly we are excited to know that there's so many New Yorkers that are interested, and we invite them to continue to learn. We'll have a hearing coming up soon, but we're learning that New Yorkers certainly have an interest in what's happening with this commission.
When the individuals come and speak, I'm curious about the public input aspect of this. What kind of stories are you hearing? In terms of a family history or just their own experience?
Yeah, we're hearing stories of their family's history, their family's role in having family members that are enslaved, current harms that they're feeling, whether it's redlining or whether it's a wealth gap. Certainly things that are currently existing right now, but many stories, many families have archives that share the histories and the harms of enslaved individuals, of Black New Yorkers. So it's interesting to hear and see how New Yorkers are coming out and sharing and want to be part of this process.
Does it depend? I know you've had these in some different areas. Has it depended on where in the state, or there have been some trends that you've now seen that you've been hearing about?
Yeah, first of all, we've been in Buffalo, Rochester. Now we've been downstate in New York City and Queens, and we'll be in Harlem on June 11th. And so each time we're hearing something very different. We had one person at the last hearing in Long Island that was learning more about enslavement in New York's role, but also learned about their family's role in enslavement. And that was interesting to hear that they were a champion for reparations, but learned of their family's role in it as well. So certainly it's interesting to learn. Every public hearing is so different. And we invite the community to learn and be part and bring your archives, bring your history. This is a learning for us. We begin the public hearings with education, and then we hear back from community members, and the commissioners themselves are certainly educated. We learn about New York's role in enslavement. Most people don't know that in 1627, New York was actively involved in slavery. And so that is a learning for many of us because we thought slavery was just really in the South, but New York State had a role. And so we're learning more about that.
Yeah, and you obviously in your day job, I think you could say, you're very involved in the community and advocacy and justice. I guess how are these the same and different? I guess when in terms of what you learn and the people you interact with, when you compared to working with this commission and then going in Rochester and doing what you do.
Yeah, my day job, I'm the CEO of the Urban League, and we're a civil rights organization. But this work is really different because we're really attuned to looking at what the harms are and hearing from the community about what possible remedies could be. And that's what's so different because community members have ideas, they want to be involved, and this is a chance for New Yorkers we're asking New Yorkers for their voice. And a lot of times we make policies and procedures, and we don't ask people for their voice. We just do what we believe is right. And I think that's what's so different about this process, that we are attuned to what the community members want. And so we're here to learn. We've been hearing from a large variety of voices, hearing their histories and their perspectives, and then we'll take that and use that to inform our report. And what's different about this too is that this is a three-pronged process. First, it's the commission learning from the public, and then it's the commission, the New York State Commission for Community Commission for Remedies, Reparation Remedies. Oh my goodness, I couldn't get that out.
Yeah.
Our commission, our work is to provide this report. And then after the report, we need the community to champion the recommendations to the New York State slaters, I'm sorry. But the governor and the New York State legislators, that's going to be their role to champion the report findings that we learn. And so it's really a three-pronged approach to this work that we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're focused on New York, but just for our viewers' sake, you see in California, some of the recommendations that were made out there, and now it is in that other phase of the Gavin Newsom and the legislature there in California. Obviously, a different stage here in New York. I'm curious, now that we've had a new administration at the federal level come in January, now that you've seen maybe before and after what people have been saying, has what people have said changed at all? Have people had different perspectives knowing that this administration is rolling back DEI and other things like that?
Well, I think that there's a difference between federal administration and New York State. This is a New York State effort. And in New York State, this commission is continuing to be advanced. And we're grateful for the work of Governor Hochul that we continue to do this work and we get to have that clear separation. We are certainly attuned to what's happening with the rollback on DEI, but we're clearly focused on what our charge is, and that is to examine the harms and bring back reports on what our recommendations are.
Okay. I was curious. It was one of the last few meetings. You and some of the other members had this conversation about trying to define what reparations means. I guess, where are you in those conversations, and have you come up with that definition yet?
We have not come up with the definitions. In fact, this week we have our work sessions where we're going through that. So we're excited to prepare that and go through that process and share that with our community. So we hope to have those definitions and share that with the community, not at the next meeting in June, but at the July meeting. So we'll be in Brooklyn on July 31st, and we hope to have that information. Our public hearing is on the 31st, and our business meeting is on August 1st. And so we'll begin to talk about that. You'll see conversations about what we've uncovered.
What has been, I know people can go watch if they want to, but I guess just take us inside a bit and what your perspective on that is. What could it mean? What should it mean? With the legislation in mind, too, of what is written by the legislators.
Well, it could mean policy change. It could mean that there's going to be a new direction. And it could, even when you look at the bill, there's a possibility of a bureau for recommendations. So there are a lot of meanings. I don't want to advance the work of the commission before we've done that work, but certainly I'm excited about us unveiling what we believe it to mean. And it's still going to take some work. Once we do that work, we're still going to have to get the report. We're working with, we just hired historian. We're in the process of hiring a historian and an economist to help us to define what reparations and what remedies should look like for New York State. So it's still a lot of work to do. Although the commission has only been around for a year, during that year, it took us time to get staff hired, and we're still in the process of hiring people. So we imagine that by the end of summer, we'll be well on our way. We plan to provide the community an update, an interim update of where we are, but certainly we still have lots of work to do before we provide that report to the governor and the legislators.
It's interesting you started there that it could be policy, because I think a lot of people think about reparations these days and immediately think of just like cash, right? And just think of money, but it's much more than that, is kind of what you're saying, right?
Absolutely, it's much more than that. I want to be clear. The commission itself is not allowed to provide we're not in the process of giving people checks or anything. Our work only is to provide a report with recommendations. It will be up to the New York State legislators, of course, our governor, on what how they follow those recommendations. So more to come.
Yeah.
People to stay attuned. We want them to stay in tune to the work that we're doing. They can learn about us at newyork.gov/reparations. You can check out the past meetings, as you've already mentioned. You can even call in. If you can't come to a meeting, you can call in at 518 473-3997. You can call in and provide your testimony. Now, we know that not everyone is going to be for reparations, but certainly we welcome everyone's voice on this. But we hope that people are, as we've already seen demonstrated, that there is an interest in what these recommendations should be, and how New York really remedies the harms and injustices that we've seen in the past. So it's a retelling of what's happened, and then looking at what do we do in the future.
And I imagine with this conversation you're having with the community and coming there, this is one of the questions that might be asked: is who should be eligible at the end of the day? Has that all been a part of those discussions? Have people appealed to that?
So we've heard people talk about who should they provided their recommendations on who should be eligible,
Yeah.
but we're still doing our work. There are a wide range of voices that provide their perspectives, and we respect it. But we want to make sure that our work, the commission's work, is rooted in research, rooted in evidence, and the community testimony that we're hearing. So more to come on that.
Yeah, and you spoke a bit to the history. You know, you mentioned the historian coming in, and I know there's been presentations about that too. And I would also like probably for you to touch on the fact that it is not necessarily just slavery; it's also policy. And you mentioned redlining. Like, is that a part of the conversation too, of that history being more holistic in that aspect?
Yeah, it's about looking at how this past is going to shape our future. And so what is the work that we have to do to remedy the harms? And so it could be looking at what economic advances need to be made to provide some remedies. May look at what policies, and I'm speculating here because it's still the work that the commission has to do to uncover what that looks like. But we know that there's a possibility of changing policy. We know that our economic empowerment opportunities could happen through these recommendations, but it's certainly going to take the work of the community to champion the recommendations that the commission provides the governor and the legislative body.
All right, now we talk timeline, because I know that there was originally a year to do this, but now that's been extended. Can you tell me a little bit about why and also the funding behind that?
Yeah, it has been extended. So we're not going to get any additional dollars. So these are the same dollars, the same $5 million has been reallocated. And so we could not finish the work by July 30th because we weren't able to hire staff in time, and we were still ramping up, and we were going through New York State processes. We're glad to be partnered with New York State OGS, and they are our partner body on this work, but it takes time for procurement and hiring staff. So we're still ramping up on staff. We plan to have most of our staff hired by the end of the summer, and now we're ready to advance the work. So we expect that our report will be provided to the governor and the legislature by January of 2027. That's our extension time.
Okay, so yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, that this next stage, I guess you could say, in the process is going all out with the resources that you would require to do this kind of work, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, Dr. Hawkins, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Hit the subscribe button right now so you can stay up to date on these news-making conversations about the issues impacting New Yorkers the most: power and politics.